It's running.
This is Martin Giles of the Guildford Dragon News, and this afternoon I'm with Joe Domican, who is the prospective parliamentary candidate for the Brexit Party in Guildford. Joe, afternoon, and thank you for coming to speak to the Guildford Dragon.
Good afternoon, Martin. Thanks for inviting me.
This is your first interview, I understand?
It is indeed.
Okay. So, first of all, you're brand new on Guildford's political scene. Tell us a bit about your background and why you decided to get involved in politics.
Well, I was originally born in Manchester. I moved here with my work with the Royal Mail, and a few years back I managed the main sorting offices here in the Guildford area, so that's why I'm here. As regards getting involved in politics, I've always been interested in politics. I've always believed in democracy. I've always saw weaknesses in our current democracy, in the setup and how our democracy worked. And with this latest Brexit fiasco, I suppose is the word, it's made me angry. It's made lots of people angry, which is bad for a democracy. And so I thought I just needed to get involved and to try to do something to make our country more focused and more democratic, and take some of this anger out of politics.
Okay, so presumably you've joined the Brexit Party, so presumably you are a Leaver, you must be a Leaver, and where would you place yourself on the left-right political spectrum?
I suppose I've placed myself to the left of centre, to be honest. For many years I was a Labour Party supporter, and like lots of their supporters felt betrayed by the lack of understanding and lack of connection to their own members, and sort of from that I've sort of been sort of in the wilderness, really, not finding any party that sort of held the same sort of values of democracy and freedom and equality that I sort of feel. And the new Brexit Party, it's only very young, it's about 20 weeks old I think now. The values which they've nailed to the flag as their values, the values which I feel I can endorse and support.
Okay, now what do you say to those people who are absolutely convinced that leaving the EU, especially without a deal, will be very damaging for the whole country?
I think people who are absolutely convinced worry me, because this is not a black and white question. People who say we know what's going to happen to the economy, we know what's going to happen to lettuces from Spain, we know for certain this, for certain that. Basically, I don't believe them. I don't think anybody knows for certain what's going to happen. This is a big change. It's a new change. The EU doesn't know what's going to happen. So I'm cautious of people giving me 100% answers, 100% knowledge, black and white decisions. That's not how life is. That's not how politics is. I'm certainly, although I believe in leave, I believe it's the best thing for the country for lots of reasons. I thought hard and long before voting. I did understand the issues, despite some parties say voters who voted leave didn't. I did think it through. I did understand the no leave possibility, the no deal possibility, as we now call it, the clean break. It's all about language, isn't it? And so,
but don't you think there'll be some impact? It's not going to just be a smooth transition, is it necessarily?
No, I don't think it will. I don't think to go from a cartel which we've been in for the last 40 years or so, to break out of that and to re-establish ourselves as an independent nation with our own democracy, our own courts, our own control of borders, all the things that we actually wanted as part of Brexit. That's not going to be just like that. Of course not.
So there will be challenges?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Absolutely, definitely.
And difficulties?
And yeah, indeed. But I mean, it's how you handle those difficulties, how you manage them. There's an awful lot of exaggeration and spin going around, which annoys me, which is why I got involved. I think it annoys lots of people, lots of voters, about their politicians, where they misrepresent and spin data in order to prove their point.
Okay, but what about the problem of keeping the union together? Scotland seems very determined to remain part of the EU if they possibly can, and that could drive an independence referendum up there.
I think what this Brexit debate has highlighted is the lack of sign up to our democratic rules. And I think part of the reason for that is because we don't have a written constitution. We have a constitution that's evolved over a few hundred years through Parliament. What people forget is that we became a democracy in 1928, not 1707. And so all these parliamentary procedures and rules, they were part of the system which kept a ruling elite of men in power in our country.
Why do you say 1928? Was that the...
that's when women got the vote.
Yeah, okay.
Right. Men only got the vote after the First World War, after they'd been marched off to the trenches to be shot.
Yeah, okay.
And so we are in fact a very young democracy. And people refer to Parliament as if that was democracy. No, Parliament was not democracy. I mean, it's the anniversary of the Peterloo Massacre at the moment, you know, from Manchester, where men, women and children was gunned down, charged down by the cavalry.
Okay.
You know, but that was Parliament.
And what about the Irish border problem?
Speaking as somebody who works in logistics professionally, it's not an issue. However, politically for the EU it's an issue. The EU claim that there's nowhere part of the EU where they don't have borders at the edge of the EU territory. Not true. I've worked in Switzerland, I've done shipping out of Switzerland, had a warehouse in Switzerland. I know people who ship in from Macedonia when I've been shipping to Europe that way. Most of Europe's not got borders. Do people really think there's a fixed border all around Europe where vehicles and goods can't be imported? Not true.
Okay. So you think the obstacle there is more political than it is practical?
And political and it's emotional, and bearing in mind the Irish situation, it's super important that we get that right.
Okay, now in 2016, the vote, although there was a clear majority to leave, it was a close call, 52 to 48. Don't you think there should be some compromise solution that we shouldn't either just remain or get out without a deal? Don't you think there should be some middle ground that we should meet in?
I think the question itself had to be simple because it's a referendum. The nature of a referendum is that it's a simple yes/no question basically, and any more than that, and it just gets extremely confusing. But rather than the politicians, despite what I don't regard myself as a politician, despite what they said in their manifestos.
Well, you are now.
Well, maybe. Yeah, I'm in the game now.
Yeah. You're a candidate.
Yeah. Despite what they said, despite what they promised, all they've done is polarise. And none of the main parties have actually seriously looked to shift their position, come together and compromise. At least as a start of a 10.
But for you, is it a no-deal Brexit or nothing, or would you be prepared to compromise? You, as a personally,
I think, obviously, I'm speaking as a member of the Brexit Party now. So our policy is that a no-deal Brexit, a clean break Brexit, as we call it, is the best deal. But that doesn't mean no deal. That gets us out of the EU. That gets us out as an independent nation trading. And you know the rhetoric before we had the vote about there'll be a deal will be easy. It's not easy now because of course the EU didn't want this to happen. They want to set an example to other member states that might want to leave, and there's quite a few talking about it. So they're not going to give us a favourable deal. So they're punishing us basically.
So are you questioning the description of no deal? Are you saying that actually there are rules and regulations that we would transfer to?
Well, this is the World Trade Organization. Obviously, they were published a year or so on the internet. We're already saying how we're going to trade. The logistics industry and people who ship stuff through Calais, you know, they've got plans how they're going to do it. Not totally defined plans because there's still ambiguity in terms of the government position. But yeah, there will be a deal.
Okay, now bringing us right up to date, what do you make of last night's vote in the House of Commons and Anne Milton's decision to rebel? And back those who have taken control of the Commons agenda, and what do you think about that?
I think a lot of that is internal Conservative Party politics. So what I would say is that MPs in general during this last few years have allowed themselves the privilege of seeing themselves as parliamentarians and therefore somehow superior to the electorate. You've had members of parliament switching parties and not resigning. changing their stance and not resigning. You're perfectly entitled to change your opinion and to learn and to think things through and change what you feel is important. But if you do that, you also have a responsibility to your electorate. And so if you do that, they say, oh, they voted for me, not for my party. I don't think so. I think most people vote for the party.
So you feel
resign.
Right.
Resign.
So you feel the Westminster bubble is a real phenomenon?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely. And I think the sort of arrogance and ego of the politicians is part of this problem. And they need to understand. They say about Parliament being supreme. No, it's the electorate that's supreme, not Parliament.
Okay, as things stand today, are you still determined to stand against the Conservatives in Guildford? Won't you simply be dividing the Leave camp's vote, allowing the Remainer Lib Dems in?
It's a super fluid situation, and you know, I'm not going to crystal ball and don't pretend I have. The Brexit Party has offered a non-aggression pact to the Conservative Party. How that will play out, and even if there is an election in October, who knows, given what's happening in Parliament at the moment, how that will play out, I don't know. All I will say is that if I am asked to stand to try to inject a bit of democracy back into our country, I'll be proud to stand. I'll be proud to do it and see what happens. And if I'm asked, and if it's a non-aggression pact to say, Joe, we don't want you to stand, we're going to back the Conservatives in this area, based on a clean break Brexit, then I'll stand down.
So come on, Joe, it's just you and me. Tell me, what are the negotiations going on between Brexit and the Conservatives?
As to the best of my knowledge, there have been absolutely no negotiations. I was with Nigel Farage a couple of days ago, and he shared with the team about the non-aggression pact. Since then, he's been public on it, he's given interviews on it. So the Conservatives know the Brexit Party's position. Whether or not they've come back on that, I just honestly don't know.
No, so if there are negotiations going on, you haven't been taking part in them,
no,
but they could be?
I don't know.
No, fair enough. Okay, and finally, I've been told that you are just a stalking horse candidate who will be replaced by someone with a higher profile. Is there any truth in that?
No, I know absolutely nothing about that either. I don't know who that candidate with a higher profile might be and why that person would want to go to Guildford. I don't know.
So that's the first you've heard of it?
That's the absolute first I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay. So, well, Joe Domican, thank you very much for giving this interview with the Guildford Dragon.
Thank you, Martin.